Hey guys, Coach Urban. I want to make this video. I wanted to make it quicker than usually I do with going through the classes and have the discussion that we have in class. But we are beginning to talk about a lot of ideas that are going to lead us to World War One, and one of those main ideas is nationalism. So everything that we're studying right now is leading us to World War One. We're going to study a lot of events, a lot of changes that happen to society, and one of those is nationalism. And what is nationalism? Your bell work asks you to kind of guess what it is. And this is kind of the definition that I would give you of nationalism: loyalty and devotion to the state with an emphasis on common history and culture. And we'll see that today in the examples of nationalism. As you can see in our country, nationalism can be used both positively and negatively. Nationalism can bring your country together, which we'll see today in the two examples that we will talk about, but it can divide your country. The people that are protesting and doing things, they're definitely loyal to the state, but the way they're going about it may be not the right way, but they are devoted to their cause. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And we'll see how common history and culture help drive the idea of nationalism. So it's loving your state, being devoted to your state, but through a rhyme or reason, a common idea. Maybe you want it to return to something, or maybe you want to become, like in our country, we want everybody to feel like they're American. So we'll talk more about that today, but that is the definition that I want you to have for nationalism. So, how does this impact Europe? How does this impact the world? Well, in Europe, two nations developed that were not nations before the mid 1800s. And the first one is Italy. Italy was independent city states. You can see in the map to the right, all the different kingdoms that made up Italy. And so they were not connected, they were not united, and they wanted to return to their past glory. If you remember from your studies last year, you would have studied Rome and the greatness of Rome, and they wanted to get back to that. They had the ruins and the history there, and they wanted to return to past glory. And you can see that today in the mantra of "Make America Great Again," and so they wanted to return to this idea as well, and make Italy great like it was when it was Rome. And they also thought that coming together might end trade barriers and stimulate the economy. So, how they were going to do this? Well, they had a leader named Camillo Cavour, and he was the prime minister of Piedmont, Sardinia. If we go back, we'll see that's in the northern parts of Italy and over here on this island. And he was the prime minister there in 1852, and he was a cunning statesman who knew how to make alliances and work with others to get what he wanted. He did it kind of the conventional way. He worked with others to try to really help his own cause. And so he brokered some alliances with some of the most powerful nations in Europe at the time, England and Great Britain, or Great Britain and France, sorry. He sided with the French and British in the Crimean War against the Russians, and in gaining those alliances, he used them to help his own means. He fought a war against Austria, who basically, France hated, and he used this to gain a lot of the northern territories in Italy. Basically, the only place that he didn't get was the Kingdom of Venetia, that included Venice. But most of northern Italy was controlled by Cavour and the Piedmont Sardinians, uh, and they start sweeping down mainland Italy. In the south, it was led by a guy named Giuseppe Garibaldi. He was a bold, visionary soldier who led a group of volunteer soldiers and nationalist rebels called the Red Shirts, signified by the red shirts they wore to battle. And they were trying to unite southern Italy through nationalism. Uh, Sardinian troops sweeping down from the north, and red shirts swept from the south. They conquered the kingdoms of the areas of Naples and Sicily and swept up to the Papal States. And so once they get there, they have two major groups that have a lot of power that could, uh, fight. Because who has power? Well, being a nationalist, Garibaldi wanted what's best for his country. And in doing so, he makes a decision. Would more countries and more people follow a king, or a soldier. And he understood that most people would recognize a kingdom more than just a rebel group of nationals leader. And so Garibaldi hands the power of Naples and Sicily over to King Victor Emmanuel, the Sardinian king, and makes him the king of Italy uh, through this action. You can see to the right, you have Giuseppe Garibaldi helping King Victor Emmanuel put the boot on, or Italy, and he's helping down at the bottom and the middle parts, and uh, the king is helping pull up the top. And so they assisted each other in this unification of Italy. Venice and Rome would later join to make the unification process complete, and Rome would be the capital, of course, and with all its history in a central location. The results of this unification are that not as good as what they wanted. Uh, the Pope, mad because he lost power from the uh, taking of different land, actually told the uh, people basically to disregard this new kingdom, and many people did. So internal issues or problems, internal turmoil, plagues Italy for years, and because of this, development is slowed, and many Italians leave for opportunities in the United States. Industrialization had been going on, like we talked about in the Industrial Revolution, in the United States and Great Britain for many years now, and they saw the problems that were going on in their own country and left, and this really slowed down development there. The other country we're going to talk about today is Germany. Germany in 1815, following the Napoleonic Wars, was set up as the German Confederation, 39 different states. But they began to develop an identity. They were made up of independent states like Bavaria, Prussia, Austria, and many others, but they began to identify themselves as one nationality, started to see themselves as Germans. Austria being the strongest nation in this group, and Prussia right behind it. Prussia was set up perfectly to man or lead this group of German states. They were very well trained. They had a very well trained military. They had great economic situation, more liberal style of government, more democratic at the time. And so they were more set up and ready to lead this group. And they believed that unification would end tariffs or trade problems and promote more cooperation amongst these groups of people. They were also led by a very unique leader named Otto von Bismarck. He becomes the prime minister of Prussia in 1873, and in doing so, he gains a lot of power. He was part of what would be called the Junkers, and this group would be the land-owning nobles or conservatives, and they would support him. So he had the support of a lot of the wealthy landowners in Prussia, and the king selected him to do this job. He uses nationalism to appeal to German speakers, the idea that they were German, this idea of having one nation or devotion to this idea of Germany. There was not a Germany before this, so he was thinking of appealing to this idea of a German nation. He used an idea called realpolitik, and it's very Machiavellian, meaning that it's very much like it's better to be feared than to be loved. The ends justify the means, and as you can see here, it says all means to achieve and hold power are justified. The idea is that this word means the politics of reality, but he used it very differently than what we think of in reality. He would manipulate the system, manufacture events to fit what he needed to happen. In one instance, he manufactured a incident between France and Prussia. A foreign diplomat from France came to talk with the king, and when the meeting was over, Bismarck sent a telegram saying that the ambassador had insulted the king and that the king was upset. and he let the public know about this, and they were outraged. And because of this, France felt that they had been falsely accused and eventually declared war. Well, Bismarck had done this on purpose. He wanted to fight a war because he felt he could defeat France, and he was doing it to gain southern provinces in Germany to that he had not been able to gain to his side. And so when France came attacking, they needed help. Prussia was there to defend them, and of course they joined with him once they saw that. Um, but he ruled without consenting the German parliament, or what we would call the Reich. This was different. He said that he would rule without parliament and without a legal budget. So he had all the power and all the money that he needed. And he said that today's issues would not be decided with speeches and majority resolutions, but by blood and iron. So he felt that the world's problems were going to be solved through warfare and death. And that's what he did. He fought many wars with Denmark and Austria to bring in neighboring lands into Prussia, and even fabricated a war with the French called the Franco-Prussian War that leads to the creation of Germany, what we know of as Germany. You have King Wilhelm there on the right. He would eventually, following the victory over France, take the title of Kaiser or Emperor of this new German state or Germany. And the results of this unification was that Germany would become an economic and military powerhouse. They would develop into one of the leaders of the world following this time period. And so the unification of Germany was much different than that of Italy's. And they did so through promoting social reforms and laws to protect the workers. Remember, in the Industrial Revolution, workers were not really protected. And so this was a new kind of idea, and they were very proactive and ahead of their time. And it's why we see Germany really rise to power, leading us to World War I. They become very powerful and threatening to many other nations. And next thing you know, we have fighting. And so I wanted to go over that very quickly today and give you a video of the notes and the ideas. And if you have any questions, make sure to send me an email. You have an exit ticket that is related to how you feel after hearing this lesson today. And then we'll talk about 19th century progress in our next video and next ideas that we study tomorrow. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you send them to me, and I hope you have a great day.